right, hi everyone. Welcome back to Planet Dirt. Today in the next few days we're going to be in the kitchen, not the garden, and we're going to be going over some homemade goodies. So I don't know if anyone else is like me, but all of a sudden a week of December disappeared and Christmas is less than a week away. So I am here surrounded by Christmas baskets, or the makings of Christmas baskets. My brother and I usually make little goodies for people every year. It's a fun little project we do together. And this year we're kind of going all out. So we made homemade wine, which actually turned out really well. It was our first go of making wine and it turned out delicious. We were both very pleasantly surprised. And we've made orange marmalade. I have plans to make some wine jelly. Shout out to Roots and Refuge Farm for sharing that recipe. It looks really fun and it totally fits into the wine theme that we're going for this year's basket. And we also have plans to make some cookies and other little goodies to put in there. I included some pickled peppers that I saved from this year's garden since I had peppers coming out of my ears and I thought that would be a really fun gift. But today we're going to be talking about beef jerky. So we're not making a ton of jerky this year. Usually that's all we focus on is making beef jerky around the holidays for people, and it's a really great gift. It's my husband's favorite food, so I learned how to make it early on and he absolutely loves it. I'll take you back to yesterday when I started the jerky since it's a couple of days process. So we'll go to that now. So the jerky you're going to start out with, you can pick any beef you want. You want it to be a little bit lean, and otherwise you're going to be cutting away a bunch of fat that's just going to render into your dehydrator. You're not going to get any actual jerky out of it. So it's good to start out with a lean cut, and I usually buy some sliced carne asada, or this year and last year I found at Costco they have a really thinly sliced, I believe it's a tri-tip cut, but it's really nice because it's already pre-sliced and the slices are uniform, so you don't have to worry about that part when you actually get to seasoning it, which is a huge help. So I started out with this pre-sliced meat from Costco, and I lay it out on cookie sheets flat, and then so that I can season it more easily. So we lay it out flat, one layer. I use a lot of cookie sheets so that I don't have to do it multiple times, but you do want to note how many pounds of meat you're working with, because the amount of cure and seasoning that you're going to do is dependent upon the number of pounds of meat. So we get that all laid out flat. Make sure to pat it dry. We don't want any residual moisture anywhere. Hopefully if you're using fresh meat there won't be much, but I like to pat it dry just for good measure. And then we'll start mixing our seasonings. So I've been using this type of seasoning, this brand, for quite a few years. They're honestly just my tried and true. I love their mesquite blend. I usually try a different flavor every now and again, and then I also like to experiment every once in a while, so with homemade blends. So this year I'm just doing the mesquite, and then I'm also doing an Inferno blend. My husband loves spicy stuff, so he would be very sad if none of the jerky was spicy, it being his favorite food. So I am doing some mesquite and some spicy for him. His, I'm actually going to add a little bit of red pepper flakes too as well, since no matter what spicy seasoning there is, he always says it's not actually that spicy. So unless it comes from like Thailand or something, then he'll admit that things are spicy. But alright, so we're going to mix up all of this spice, and we're going to evenly distribute it over however many pounds of meat. So for the mesquite I did 3 pounds. I cut it in half this year. I just did 3 pounds of each flavor of seasoning. So I measured out enough for 3 pounds of meat, of cure and seasoning, and mixed it up, and then I put it into the shaker. You can measure it right into the shaker if you don't want to dirty another dish, but honestly, the shakers don't usually come with a top, so it's easier for me to just mix it before I put it in, and then I don't have to deal with accidentally making a mess all over my floor if I shake it wrong. So that's just what's easier for me. And then I'm going to go through and just put a layer of the cure and the seasoning over the meat. As I go, I'm going to do one layer of all of the sides of all of the cookie sheets that I have laid out, and then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to do the other side. So the reason why I don't flip as I go is, one, I want to make sure that when I do the first half, I have about half of my seasoning left. That's how I gauge it. And then two, I want to give the cure and the seasoning just a couple of minutes to start to dissolve into the meat. And so by the time I come back to it, by the time I'm finished putting on that first layer, I'll go back to the very first ones that I did and I'll start flipping them over. You go through and I'm going to flip them all over, and then I'm going to season and cure the other side of the meat. Now, once that's done, I just put it in Ziploc bags. I try to keep the pieces together. This meat that I'm working with is pretty thin, as you'll see, so I ended up with a few little clumps and bits of meat, and I just seasoned that too. I put the cure on that as well, and I'm just going to put that on my little silicone mat in my dehydrator, and I'll make little jerky bites out of it. It'll still taste good. I just will probably keep that for myself because I like munching on that, and my husband prefers the big pieces, and the big pieces also look more professional if you're making these for gifts. So I usually keep those little bites as tester bites. Now, if you are cutting the meat yourself, then you have more control over the thickness of your slices. You probably wouldn't make them quite this thin, but I actually like how thin these ones are because, one, if there are any clumps of fat, as you can see, when I was going through here, I did find a couple of clumps of fat. They just pull off because the meat is so thin, so I don't have to worry about going through and carving out any big chunks of meat from the whole piece of meat that I'm working with. But also it dehydrates very quickly, so you have less of a margin for error when you're dehydrating, but it tends to go quicker. So I got all of that cured. I got all of it back into the bags as I'm showing you here, and I'm going to put this in the refrigerator. Now, the instructions say that you can go anywhere from 4 hours to 24 hours before you start drying it. I always go the full 24 hours because I want to make sure that the seasoning is really in there in the meat. And so I always make sure that I always go the full 24 hours because I want to make sure that the cure and the seasoning gets into all the nooks and crannies in the meat. And especially when you're working with a thicker cut, you definitely want to wait the full 24 hours to make sure that it penetrates through the big thick cut of meat. So we're going to come back to today, and this is what I have. So as you can see, all of the meat has turned a nice brown color because it has cured. It has been seasoned. All of the salt and the sugar in the cure has worked its way into the meat, and it turns it this brown color, and that's when you know it's ready to go. So we're gonna get this in the dehydrator and start getting some jerky made. now, and this is the last tray. So that fits. I have a little bit extra room on that last tray, but that was 3 pounds of meat, and it's gonna make one batch. I have 7 trays in this dehydrator, so I'm super excited that I only have to do 1 round for each flavor. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get this started, get this closed. Mine has a handy dandy latch on it so it doesn't fly open at a moment's notice. And I like this dehydrator because it has a little cheat sheet on it. So I can turn it on, I can set the time, and then it also tells me what temperature I should be cooking what at. Well, dehydrating what at. So for meats, fish, and jerky, we're gonna go 145 to 155. I always do whatever the lower temperature is because I wanna make sure that I'm not overcooking anything. All right, I'm gonna start it out for only 2 hours and that's what it's set at right now because that's what I did previously. So I'm gonna start it at 2 hours since those ones were really thin. I'll check it and see where we're at, and then I'll probably do it in 30-minute increments from then on out. If they were thicker, it would probably take 4 to 5 hours to start, and then I would check it at half an hour after that. But since they're so thin, I don't want to run the risk of them getting crispy on me. All right, there we go. There's batch 1. While we're waiting for that batch to dehydrate, this is a sneak peek at the Christmas baskets. So we made homemade wine. We're gonna make pretty labels to put on them. We have little Christmas ornaments. These are the pickled peppers that I made from the garden. We made orange marmalade. Turned out really, really yummy. Super excited about that. And then just a cute couple of other Christmas things to round out the basket. We're also going to be putting some cookies and probably some jerky in here. Yay, Christmas! here is the final product. So we have 5 bags of the Inferno blend. My husband put a heart on this one because he said this one's his because it's the biggest package. And then we have 6 bags of the Mesquite. That one's my favorite. It's kind of like a smoky sweet, but it has 0 spice. And I'm a wimp and I can't handle the spice. So this was pretty awesome. Got a lot. That was, I think, 6 pounds total of beef. And we got quite a few bags out of it. So I'm actually pretty happy. Super excited. It's going to go into all of these lovely Christmas baskets. And that's a wrap on the jerky. Thanks for coming along. And I'll see you next time.